what we're going to do now, we're going to take out the remaining castings so that we can feed the bins. We're going to show you how to feed the worms. Also, we're going to look at halving one so you can see how to set up, say, a new worm bin or how to move your worms. So we'll look at that. So one of the bins will just feed onto one side. That'll be preparing for the worms to move if I want to harvest half the castings. So I'd let the feed on one side, the worms will all move. I'll take out half the castings. When I do that, I'll knock down the other worms and then feed them back up. So that's kind of the process. So whether I start with even a handful, I feed, finally full of worms. I can either take out half the worms to make a new bin and or move the worms over to the side, take out the castings. Sometimes if I see one bin that's doing really good for some reason and the other bin next to it or down the line is it's not doing as well, they're not eating, then I can take worms from this bin. So I'll dig down and get like a big handful, a big shovel full of worms, and I'll throw them onto the bin that's not doing as well.
Yeah.
I take from the other one? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna take all these out so that we can feed them. Then the next level, we're gonna use these to make our potting mixes. So now we, again, different product. If we see inside, there's a nice worm. The little baby ones like that, you could try to pick out every one. For me, I don't worry that much. I try to put back the breeders. The little babies, it's okay. They're gonna go to the garden, so it's no problem. So if I dig too deep, too fast, that's why the worms are there. So I need to give them kind of like they think a chicken, and then they go away, and I can take more, and then they go away, I can take more. And if I go too fast, then that's why I get the worms.
Okay.
So I need to give them time, make noise. So if you're not talking there, and not do anything, and then you dig too fast, that's why you'll get too many worms in the castings. More so vibration. Okay, I think that they hear, or we would think that they hear by vibrations. Give them time. You can even do something like this, just touching it. Come on, guys, go away. So here we go. We got these all kind of pretty much ready. We'll get them, get it out as much as we can, and then we'll go ahead to feeding the bins. So this bin is so full that if I try to feed it, the food's almost going to fall out. So I want to take out the castings, right? Okay, so half of this. And then, wow, all my worms are in there. And I could sit here and pick them out, right? And say, oh. And what I would only do is look. And if I see one that's like a breeder, like a big one, yeah, then I'd say, oh, well, I'm going to put the big one back. But these are small, not juvenile, but, different life cycles. So that's fine. We'll move it to the garden. Worms in the garden are great. So here we go. Okay, so if I wanted, I could clean it up and make it like a perfect half, but it doesn't make that much difference. So now I've taken out half. From here, if I wanted, let's say I had 4 more rings, or even 10, I could take a piece of this, so it's obviously worms, put it, feed them, grow them up. I could try to separate, there's machines or apparatuses to separate the worms from the castings, to sell the castings, and or sell the worms. Sell them together, worms and castings. Just depends on your market. Give them away. We have quite a lot of people that come to the farm, say, hey, can I have some? Sure. Dig them up. So now, we'll bring this to our garden. Equally, I could put it with our potting mix. But I tend to find that if it's already got worms in it, I like to put it in the garden. If it doesn't, I like to put it in my potting mix. Gives the worms time to grow up. And then when this goes, this is now a tree going to be planted with its worms that were born into the soil, right? That the tree is growing in. So remember that worm is now acclimatized. This one a little different, so it goes into the garden. So at that point, pretty easy. Now I have that, knock it over. If I knock that down, now I'll have that much and I can feed it up. And it might take another 4 or 5 months to get to the top again. So every 5 months I can get one of these, or if we have 10 divided by, I can get like every month easily. This plus the thing, so I get 2 huge wheelbarrows per month. It's not bad on this system, pretty easily. But actually, to be honest, right now, I haven't been doing it as often. That's almost, so maybe I can do one more, maybe 2 months, and I'd have to half that one. That one was full. But some of these are getting pretty close to, again, full, hard to feed. Now, ergonomically, again, look at that one's in the corner. Makes it hard to get to. And then now it's like wedged in, so even to get it out is hard. So, you know, if I more redesigned or built a new one, I would think about like, hey, you have to get it out. It is work. But when I'm doing work, and I think about it here at Raktamachat, whatever work I have to do, I want to be paid. I value my time, my labor. So this is a great thing. I just did, you know, a couple minutes. You can even call it exercise. Okay, good. Get a little sweat up. And boom, look what I got. Almost like $100 in Thailand, which would be like getting $400 or $500 in the West. Not bad for 5 minutes. 500 bucks. Could do that all day, right? So that's the type of thing. But remember, that's only if I can sell it. So it has an intrinsic value, I mean physically, and then we have a marketed value if we can market it. And if we can't, maybe I don't have access to that particular market, it's too difficult, maybe I don't have enough quantity. So if I take this, though, and sprinkle it over my plants, well then I can turn it into the plant, which maybe I have a better market for. And I always have a market for my own food that I eat. Because if I make my food, I don't have to buy my food. So that has a direct value. So you have your own market, then you have surplus, you can find a market. What's nice about this is it's not perishable. Okay, so if I bag it up and it sits, it doesn't expire as such. So that's nice. I can bring it each month. I go to the farmer's market and I have a bicycle with a little bicycle trailer. And on the back of the bicycle trailer, I could easily pull 200 kilos, right? Or 100 kilos of worm castings. I sell 100 bags at the market, $10 a bag. So we'll take that out, we'll knock this down, and good to go. And that'll allow us to now go get some manure, and we can feed these. But you could see, if we weren't doing the course, and we normally do most of our, say, stuff after what we show you, because we'll show you lots of techniques. But I could say, okay, let's spend the rest of the morning, half out all these bins, move them all to the garden. And that, okay, half a morning of work, imagine the input to that garden. So that's time, creates that input with low value resources. So maybe after the course, then that's something that I'll be looking at and say, okay, it's about time. I'm gonna knock out and half down these bins, move them to the garden. Your garden is also a worm bin, right? As long as we have our composting regime and we're feeding compost into our beds, we have our irrigation, then the worms that are added there, if with the right watering, moisture, and food, they're happy. So then you can say, wait, all those beds are full of worms? So how big's the worm farm? But in those, I don't harvest castings. So where do the castings go? To the plants. So then castings converted to plants. Here, no plant, so I see the castings. In the garden system, the plants and the water soluble are taking up the nutrient. And that's what's happening. Why? Yes, I have worms there, but I don't see all the whole castings. What's happening? Plants are eating them. Okay, so that's very wet. So normally not wet. Definitely a lot easier when it's dry. Okay, but normally it's dry, it's just powdery, if you will. We push it around like that, and then they have something to eat. But what's interesting though, I think I prefer to feed it dry, and then I'll show you, I wet it, right? Because then I don't have to really touch wet manure. It's just dry and smell. The water you add it starts to smell and go back to like smelling like manure. So that's it, knock it around. You could have wore gloves, but as I said, I've never ever done it wet, but okay. The worms that we knocked down are now going to come up into that layer, start to eat that layer, convert it, and over 1 month period, that will turn into that. So this is phase shifted to there, and I will harvest it, okay? If I want to get my population higher, then I could feed more, because they really almost can convert that in like a week. get it like 80% converted. So then that's where people start to do like more systems trying to push the worms. And if you have a good market and you can get the value, it's worth it. For me, I find once a month is enough. Kind of did that one. Okay. Yeah, moving around a little bit. They've got some food. You can play with it. You can watch them. Be careful about, as I said before, buying volume or buying water. So we buy by the bag, not by the weight.
Yeah.
So here we see again a dry weight, maybe 40 kilos turns into dry weight 20 kilos of that wheelbarrow. And it's actually maybe a little higher because we're always taking out 20, but then there's always building up slightly too. Yeah. So it's kind of I think it's actually a higher ratio. Normally, it would be dry, super easy, so that's really heavy. It would be like maybe a quarter of that weight. So easily one person can pick it up and just pour it. Then we swish it around and then we wet it. Okay, so, but today it was wet. So some farmers, they feed direct wet or fresh manure. And actually the worms would be able to eat that better, because normally when we put dry, it takes me 1 or 2 days to get it wet enough for them to actually really eat it. Yeah? And in this instance, they can almost start immediately eating it. But of course, it's harder for me to do that, like do that work. But I could also just imagine that was exercise. Well, the market typically dictates what they think something's worth. So worm castings already have a value. So you then have to figure out how long did it take me to work with this per month, right? Yeah. So if I did this by myself, I'm not teaching, I'm not doing anything, I have the dry manure. For me to clean those out, because I would not have watered it for 2 days so it's drier, I would have cleaned those out to get that wheelbarrow in maybe about 15 minutes, okay? If deer hadn't watered them. I would have poured the manure in so maybe 30 minutes, I have that wheelbarrow. So that being invested and stationary, right? 30 minutes of work gives me what is equivalent of in Thailand, in the market, you know, a couple $100. Yeah. But then that's it. Then I have to find another 30 minutes to make some more money, because that's not enough, you know, like, is that enough for your family? And if it is, that's all you got to work. But I might have to have 3 things that I work on to get me each day, you know, because remember, that's only for 1 month. So then I have another thing, and I have another thing, and those things add up to, okay, I have enough to pay my bills, you know? Remember, lower your bills, right? And you don't have to work as much. And that's the first secret. Second secret is, if I work, what do I get for it, and who's going to purchase my labor from me? And I want to kind of keep my labor, right? So when I'm working on this, not only am I selling that, but I still have the asset. So when we work for other people, a lot of times that we're selling our bodies. We don't receive anything back but cash. So here we still have the asset and the cash. That's the idea. So think about, what system can I start small? It's not a lot of capital investment. You know, once a month, if I built this whole system, I could get the worms almost for free from a friend or somebody. Even if I have to purchase them, they're only like $20 for a kilo. And then at which time, over a period of months, I only have to put in like $20 a month and my time. And then finally I get an investment that adds up to paying me, you know, $200 a month. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's what people do. And there's lots of people around the world that are doing this in their garages and making supplemental income for their family.